care. It's the women that provide the glue to society, and this is what's so terrible about this use of rape as a war crime, of sexual violence in conflict, is that it destroys that society, it destroys that structure, it rips away the glue from the villages, and these women that currently bind the villages together, that currently allow a village to be economically viable, it rips them apart because they're thrown out of their homes and they're thrown out of the villages because of the rape. And so this is why, unfortunately, it is such an effective tool. It is such an effective weapon of war, is because it rips apart whole communities. And
right. Sorry, the reason I'm stopping you, Marcus, is that... Hey, Eve, I'm going to give you the last word on this.
Not only are women the primary breadwinners, but women are incredibly exploited in terms of labor. And you will often see a woman carrying 100 pounds, 200 pounds sacks on their backs. And I think the real struggle right now is to get women to understand that they have the power, they just need to take the power. You know, they are actually making the country work, and yet at the same time, their money is taken away from them by their husbands. They are exploited like hell. I mean, I would virtually say it's slave labor in most cases, if you look at the kind of labor that women are doing. And if women really begin to know their rights and begin to know what they're entitled to, then they will actually take the power, because they actually have the power to be taken. So I think that's really an important point.
Well, Eve Ensler and Marcus Bleasdale, thank you very much for discussing this. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Remember, you can follow our program on Twitter. We'll keep you notified on upcoming shows, and you can send us questions and comments to pose to our guests. On the next show, Tear Down This Wall. The man who wrote the immortal album The Wall more than 30 years ago is urging Israel to take down its separation barrier in the West Bank. Roger Waters reveals the passion behind his project for peace. Be sure to tune in for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.
Malaysia has created amongst the world's greenest, most cost-efficient buildings and constructed the most futuristic Formula One racing circuits. Discover Malaysia's service excellence at the Malaysia Services Exhibition Abu Dhabi. Register with Martrade.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines,
most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story at this time on Al Jazeera. Personal blogs by professional journalists. blogs.aljazeera.net.
Two generations face the past in order to understand the present. A young man embarks on a journey with his father in search of answers. Great changes in China have brought their traditional family way of life to a crisis point. Faces of China, at this time on Al Jazeera.
No letting up. Pro-Gaddafi forces continue to pound Brega after being repelled by the opposition the day before. Hello, I'm Fuli Batibo. You're watching Al Jazeera live from Doha. As witnesses report fresh airstrikes on the oil-rich town, the Arab League says it could impose a no-fly zone in Libya. But the people of AlJazeera aren't waiting around. They're setting up air defenses on their own. Gaddafi loyalists vow to defend their leader till death, even as the opposition plots to take over Tripoli. Al Jazeera has learned Colonel Gaddafi has accepted an offer by the Venezuelan president to mediate talks to solve the crisis. In other news, no immunity. A Pakistani court rules an American man accused of murder won't get diplomatic protection. And airport attack. 2 U.S. servicemen shot dead as a gunman opens fire in Frankfurt, Germany. It's It's just gone 11 a.m. in Libya, where the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi continues. Al Jazeera has learned the embattled Libyan leader has accepted an offer from the Venezuelan president to mediate talks, but both sides seem unwilling to concede any territory. On Wednesday, Gaddafi gave another lengthy speech in which he again reminded the world he will not be stepping down. The protesters are equally defiant and have been battling pro-Gaddafi forces in various towns. Now, Libyan opposition groups are amassing men and weapons in a bid to reinforce their control of AlJazeera in the east. The area around AlJazeera and Brega was the scene of airstrikes and fierce fighting on Wednesday between rebels and pro-Gaddafi troops. And there are now fresh reports of attacks by pro-Gaddafi forces on Brega this Thursday. The aftermath of Wednesday's attacks there. Bodies of victims at the hospital morgue in Brega. All this as the International Criminal Court prepares to kick off its investigation into crimes against humanity in Libya. We'll hear from our correspondent inside Libya in just a moment, but first, this report from Tony Burley.
It was a call to arms that was answered by thousands. From the towns and the desert, opposition fighters gathered in AlJazeera to repel an attack by forces loyal to Gaddafi. Their weapons range from the powerful tanks and anti-aircraft batteries to those more at home in a museum. There was confusion and disorganization. Shells were fired out. Complaints returned as residents ahead explained they were coming under fire from their own side.
What about the capability? I mean, you've got a lot of men here and you've got a lot of weapons. Can the men use the weapons?
God willing, they will learn to use the weapons effectively.
The conviction of the volunteers has to be admired. The capability is open to question. Gaddafi's forces were said to number around 300 men. They attacked the strategically important town of Brega at first light, and witnesses said they began firing indiscriminately.
This is in the morning. Many people come in mafia for Gaddafi. He killed many people in the morning.
Heavy weapons were sent forward and hundreds of trucks and cars stacked with ammo and guns taken from captured army stockpiles. Casualties came back. Many hurt, he told us, many dead.
This doesn't seem to have been a full-fledged assault, more like a probing attack. But it shows that Gaddafi forces are strong, they can strike at will, and that the Libyan leader shows no signs of giving up. Quite the contrary, he's hitting back.
10 kilometers from Brega and more forces congregated. No one seemed to know exactly what was happening. Then a Libyan Air Force bomber circled overhead. Its first bombing run hit close to the center of the fighting near Brega University. The second hit our position. Landing 70 meters away. Miraculously, no one was hurt. Then Gaddafi's fighters fled.
We suddenly saw some Toyota cars with anti-aircraft batteries. They started firing mortar rounds. The